Bruce's wife, Sherry, had applied for a position as a flight attendant on Horizon Airlines, part of Alaska Airlines. They called and asked for a face-to-face interview. Sherry and Bruce then flew together to Portland, Oregon, Bruce coming along for emotional support and a mini vacation. While Sherry was in the interview process, lasting anywhere from 3 to 6 hours, Bruce was free to roam and check out different locations around the airport, during which he found a cute cafe on the water looking like something from the islands playing Margaritaville by Jimmy Buffett. Little did he know that the seed had been planted, that life was changing. Please help me welcome Bruce.
Good morning. The seed was planted. I hadn't realized how deep that seed was planted, but I was free to roam about Portland, Oregon while Sherry was going through the sweating agony of a job interview. And I didn't know. It was in 3 phases, so she might have gotten kicked out in the first or the second phase, or she might have made it all the way through. So I had to be on standby close to the airport. And in Portland, the airport is located right next to the Columbia River. So I was drawn to the river and I went up and down the river. And I found out that in Portland, they actually have houses on the river. They're floating and they have boats next to them or other things that are around that you can float about the water. So I looked across the water there and I found this little cafe on this island. And I said, that's a good thing to keep track of, because being a positive result or a negative result, the cafe is something that we will probably need after Sherry's done with her job interview. Well, a few hours later, success, she got hired. So I told her about it and we went over to this cafe. I didn't realize that on the way, we would be going by all these boat brokers. There's one, and there's another one, and another one, and another one, and the last one had sailboats. So we parked the car and we went down this ramp. It was fairly steep. And then on the left and on the right, all these boats on the way down to the end of the dock were for sale. Okay, we made it through. Okay, we had our lunch, our beverages and everything else. And then we came out, and on the left and on the right again, the boats hadn't moved. They're still for sale. But then there's a boat broker at the bottom of the ramp that had one of these little pieces of paper for us to take and look at the prices of the boats. Uh-oh. And then there's a sailing school next to them and more boats for sale. We went up the ramp and Sherry took her training several months later and got domiciled, they call it, in Medford, Oregon, which is Southern Oregon. So we had to fly to Denver to Seattle, Seattle down to Portland, and down to Medford most of the time. So we would be teased by these people on the Columbia River playing with their boats. Oh, that was even worse. And finally, after several months, she was able to get moved up to Portland as a domicile. And that was great. Whole lot easier to get to than Medford, Oregon. And we were closer to the water, but we were boatless. Well, one day Craigslist came to save us and we found a boat. We bought a boat. We took that boat out on the Columbia River. We had some problems with it and we tried to find some experts to help us to learn how to sail it better, not to end up where we are laughing stock of the river. So with a little bit of time, we found out that there's a school up in Bellingham, Washington, outside Seattle, that offers a week-long course. So in the summer of 2019, Sherry took it 1 week, I took a different week, so that we'd learn different things so that we could come back and not crash our new boat to us that we had bought, because we found out that, well, it was costly in fuel and time and everything else. And we could live on the water. And Sherry was only there a few days a month, and the marina would allow us to do that without being able to live aboard. So we did that. We took that boat out, and I still remember this guy at one boat show. He portrayed himself as an expert. He says, you're a sailor when you run aground. Your engine quits when you're out sailing or out, trying to get back home, and there's no wind. I did all those in the first 2 weeks of owning the big boat. And so I was definitely a sailor by then. But we realized later on that we're not sailors yet. So we kept playing. We kept looking for experts to help us. And like I said, we went up and we took that sailing course from San Juan Sailing up in Seattle. And we found out that Puget Sound is big. And there's a lot of opportunity up there to find experts to help us learn how to sail better. And bigger water, bigger problems, but bigger opportunities. So last summer during the pandemic, we bought a sailboat. We resided on Lake Union for several months right next to Sleepless on Seattle House, downtown Seattle. So we found a slip finally, west of Seattle, 10 miles. So now we can keep exploring and finding out new things. And so our philosophy is there's a film producer, ski film producer, Warren Miller, and the way he said it is, if you don't do it this year, you'll just be 1 year older when you do. And then the other thing had another quote, and I've adjusted it for the times and for what I'm doing. Most people work 50 weeks a year so they can do this for the other 2. Well, the smart ones live on their sailboat where the boss lets them have sailing days off, and that can be every day depending upon where your present location is. That's a lot of days off. With the changes in technology for communication, solar energy, and batteries, to name a few, more jobs than ever are available to do remotely. So quit your job, rent the U-Haul, so that next year, this can be you. Not just sitting there listening to the speech and wishing this was you. With a jubilant farewell to 2020, wishing everyone a brighter new year. Fair winds and following seas to all.